Okay, so now let's look at information. What is information? Now we have gathered the data. The information now is the data that has been processed, organized, or structured in a way that makes it meaningful, valuable, and useful. Now, as we said earlier, the information which they gather at the hospital, it doesn't make any sense to us. It's them now that they process it, they make something out of it, they make it valuable to us, they write it in our health passport or whatever. Now, after writing, it doesn't make sense to us. It's now them that process it and it becomes meaningful to them. The way they write at the hospital, you can't see, for example. But if you go to a pharmacy, they will see what you have. They have written and they give you the required medicine. So they have processed the information to make it valuable. Sometimes they even give you advice to say, okay, here looking at the data here, you need to do ABCD. That has become valuable now because it is now information. It is no longer data. Okay, so that's information. You are looking at data that has been processed, organized, or structured in a way that makes it meaningful to the one that has collected it or to where the data was sent. So it has been given context, relevance, and purpose. Okay, so that data can be used in different ways. You take the same data, you give it to your boss. Your boss will say, "Okay, I've seen the data. Yes, that's true. You really went to the hospital. I'm going to give you your full pay." You can see now that the data has been is relevant now to the boss in a different way than it was to the doctors. So after you process the data, you get the knowledge, you get the understanding, and the insights that can be used for decision making, problem solving, communication, and various other purposes. The data you gather at the hospital, the data you gather at school, it helps you to make decisions or to solve a problem which could have erupted if you had no data. At school, you look at the scores of the students. It gives you an insight to say, I think with these kind of scores, my students are not going to pass. What should I do? I need to maybe do some part time so that my students can pass. That is, you are trying to solve a problem of failure because you have data. You are trying to solve a problem of maybe escalating your BP because the doctors have given you data and now you have information. Now let's look at the data processing cycle. Now, the data processing cycle refers to the iterative sequence of transformations applied to raw data to generate meaningful insight. What we are trying to say is it's a cycle, it doesn't end. Where you think it is ending, another process is starting. So the first one is data acquisition. This stage encompasses the methods used to collect raw data from various sources. So you are collecting the data from those sources where you can have primary source or secondary source. Primary source, you are looking at, you are going to collect the data at first hand. You are collecting the data directly from the person who is in question. Let's say you are collecting data from farmers. You are collecting the data from the farmer himself or the farmer herself. You are collecting the data from the students themselves. So that's a primary. While on secondary, you can collect this data from someone else who had the chance to talk to the primary source. Let's say in the hospitals, we can go in the hospitals to collect the data about patients. It's not us who collected the data from the patients, it's the HSCs who collected the data from the patients. So you are taking secondary data. Then you have the data preparation. Here, data preparation, you are looking at the raw data is inherently messy and it requires cleaning and pre-processing before analysis. So before you analyze the data, you need to clean it. In other words, you need to remove the outliers. You need to look at missing values. There are times when you're entering the data, you find out that some of the variables are not filled. So you have to check what happened before you go into data analysis. There are times when you go on you are doing a survey, and then you ask them, how many children do you have? They say, okay, we're having 10. And instead of 10, you write 100. You go to analyze the data, you find out that it's not making sense. You check the data, maybe the person only has one wife, and you are like, one wife, they can't have 100 children. This doesn't make sense. So you have to look at those before you start analyzing the data. And then you have data input. Here you are looking at the pre-processed data is loaded into a system suitable for further processing and analysis. For example, in ODK, you collect the data using the mobile phone. After collecting the data, you send it to the server, and you can load that data in Microsoft Excel, or you can load that data in SPSS for further processing. That is also data input. When you are in the village collecting the data using ODK, you are also inputting data directly from the respondents. So you are converting the data into a machine readable format and storing it in a database or data warehouse. For example, when you are collecting the GPS, uh, those are just numbers which we cannot understand. But when you load it into the system, it becomes machine readable. The machine can read it and convert it in a format that can be stored in a database or a data warehouse. Then we have data processing. Here, the data undergoes various manipulations and transformations to extract valuable information. So here now you can filter the data to say, okay, I'm only looking for the data concerning males or concerning females. Here you can find the averages. Here you can uncover patterns or and the relationships between data. You can look at the relationship between men and women in terms of their income. You can look at the relationship between the knowledge about HIV and AIDS and the level of education. That is data processing. Then you have the data output. After you process the data, you have to give output to the people so that they can make a decision on their own. Okay, so the transformed data is then analyzed using various techniques to generate insights and knowledge. This could involve statistical analysis, visualizations, techniques, or building predictive models. Okay, for example, as we were doing the voting, people were collecting data, they processed the data, they were giving visualizations to say, okay, this part is doing like this part is doing like this. That is data output. You could be able to see the dashboard to say, okay, the dashboard is showing that this president is the one that has got more votes in this area. That is data output. Then data storage, the processed data and the generated outputs are stored in a secure and accessible format for future use. So you have to keep the data after you have processed it. After you have given output, you keep the output as well as the raw data, so that next time if you need them, you can refer back to say, okay, this is the data we had, this is the output which we had. And that's how the data which is collected is stored. So you have to store it in a way that you can refer back, and the data should be in accessible format. Don't just keep it whereby people cannot access it. No, keep it where people can access it easily. Let's say you are keeping a video that is not processed, a video that has a lot of noise or whatever. No, keep it in a way that anyone can be able to access it at any time. Okay, so thank you for your time. That was to do with information and data processing cycle.